I'm here today to do some stand-up as part of the ICC Digital programme for later broadcast. I've discovered that when I'm doing stuff like this, I get ideas and I write them down and I start working on them. And the more time I give myself, the easier it is, because I think I've done it one day, and then when I get up the next day, I decide to change it and add things and take things out. So it's good to have the time to do it. So I've probably been working on it for a couple of weeks. It's one of the things that's on my bucket list, all the things I never had time to do when I was busy working, because I've been working full time since I was about 17. So stand-up was something that I always wanted to try, and a couple of years ago I did a stand-up course, and I had only done a couple of gigs when COVID set in. So my mother used to refer to it as acting the goat. I've been acting the goat my whole life. I amuse myself. I hopefully amuse other people, but that's how I kind of get through difficult times in my life, is just trying to see the funny side of things. So I thought I would just give it a go while I'm still here, and so that was it. Yeah, so I've been doing some work for the ICC Digital. I've been doing some videos at home in lockdown and sending them through for upload, as have lots of other people doing various kinds of music and readings and all sorts of stuff. And it's just something I really enjoy doing. It's great fun. So now that we can expand these social bubbles, my problem, however, is that my bubble chums all live far and wide. There's nobody locally. So I'm going to have to see if I can pull a few strings and maybe get Dominic Cummings to drop me at Specsavers in Glasgow. You know, next time he's going that way, which will probably be any day now. I have spent the last 4 months in solitary confinement, basically because my friends and family all live quite far away. So it has been a lifeline for me doing this, like finding the humour in being locked in with no contact with people apart from the staff in Tesco when I go and do my weekly shop, but I have had no contact with friends or family. So this has been a creative project to get me through the weeks, basically, and it's been 4 months or more. Hello, Wembley! Well, not quite. One day. I'm actually in the beautiful theatre of the Irish Cultural Centre, Hammersmith, but we're still in lockdown here, so I'm afraid there's no audience. There's a film crew, but they're all so far back for social distancing. They're about this size, and it's quite dark in here, which makes me feel a bit like I'm performing to a couple of mice in a coal cellar. But anyway, hopefully things will return to normal quite soon, as soon as Boris says we can. Anyway, it's not too bad there not being an audience, really, because it means I don't have to deal with all the hecklers. I mean, sometimes that can degenerate really quickly. A lot of swearing can get violent, a lot of punches being thrown, and the hecklers are just as bad. Anyway, one day soon I shall actually get to Wembley, and I have been practicing. Look. I have been training with the menopausal academics since quite a few months, actually. And the coach said he would give me a tryout with the team. But of course, the virus and COVID and lockdown has put that into delay. But I will get there one day. I wasn't actually allowed to play football as a child at school because apparently the Virgin Mary and all the saints would have got their knickers in an uproar if they'd seen me and girls running up the pitch. So we weren't allowed to play. It's changed now, of course. And women are doing really well in football, in leagues, women and girls. Although when women first started being taken seriously and playing, the pundits would refer to them as ladies' teams. Ladies' teams. And I was at home shouting at the TV, they're not ladies, they're women. Ladies don't play football. You don't hear them running about shouting, "Hey, Daphne, do pass the ball over here. Hey, let's go to girl, hurrah, sweet." Talk about patronising. I mean, can you imagine on a Saturday with the sports results if they said, oh, you know, Hammersmith ladies are playing away today and the gentlemen are playing at home. I mean, there'd have been an absolute uproar. But thankfully it has changed, and girls can now play football at school, and the women's leagues are doing really well. And, you know, it might just be me, but as far as I'm concerned, if women and girls had been allowed to play far earlier, Scotland's performances in the World Cup trial qualifiers might have been a different story. But that's just me. Anyway, the sort of earliest group sport, team sport I remember was when I was a child growing up in Scotland. I come from a town near Glasgow. Coatbridge is the name of it, and it's very Irish in terms of it's very populated by Irish settlers. So it was quite a busy place, and the team sport that I got involved in as a young child was the scramble, which was a bit like a rugby scrum. And the way this worked was when a girl was getting married and she was leaving the house on the morning of her wedding to go to the church or the chapel with her father, the father would throw a load of money out of the car window. And all the kids in the neighbourhood would gather knowing this wedding was taking place. And we'd all have this pushing and shoving because you wanted to be at the side where the father was, because that's the window the money came out of. So we'd all be pushing and shoving, trying to get in the right position, elbows and knees and scratching to get in the front. And then the money would be thrown and we'd all dive onto the pavements. You know, the mothers would be standing around because they wanted to look at the frock, but we were after the money. This was how we supplemented our pocket money. Between that and taking ginger bottles out to the ice cream man for a penny back on an empty bottle, it was quite a lucrative little business. So that's the way things used to go. And then it was a busy town. I mean, it had a sort of main street of shops and it was all quite busy. But I kind of lived a bit further out in the suburbs. Although if anybody I know sees this, they'll say, "Oh, get her living out in the suburbs." It was just, you know, it was just a bit out of centre of the town. And we all used to go up to the main town on a Saturday because that's where all the kind of main shops were. And there were loads of great bands, loads of live music, especially during the summer. We'd have the Orange Walk parading up and down the street. And then we'd have the Hibs Walk. They'd also be parading up and down the street. And quite often those could degenerate into rugby scrums as well at the end of the day. And then the kind of middle ground was the Salvation Army. They didn't actually parade. They used to stand outside Woolworths on a Saturday and play their tambourines and sing hymns. So they were kind of, you know, they never get any rugby scrums. Quite a calming force. But it was a predominantly Catholic area, and my training in becoming a fully fledged Catholic began when I was about 7. Because this was when I started being trained to get ready for my first confession. Yeah, I was about 7 years old. So we'd go from learning the times tables to suddenly learning the 10 Commandments. And the teacher would go through these commandments and would study them and learn the process of what we had to say to the priest and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, you know, what sins are you committing when you're 7 years old? You know, apart from maybe picking your nose and wiping it on the couch. Or if you were a bit daring, you might eat it as well. But I mean, this wasn't on the list of sins, so I never mentioned those things until now. Just didn't mention it. So we made our first confession, and that was fine. This was all in preparation for making our first Holy Communion. But nobody actually explained that if you didn't commit sins, you didn't have to go to confession every week. So after the first one was over, I continued to go, usually on a Friday night, and the church was full, so clearly there was a lot of bad people about. So I used to just pick and mix off the 10 Commandments, you know, and I would say I had done this and I had done that, and then I would add 2 lies for the lies I just told the priest. And I just worked my way up and down the list. But eventually, I ran out of ideas. So I started going towards the ones at the end of the list of 10, and found myself confessing to committing adultery and coveting my neighbour's wife. And the priest never actually explained to me what that was or questioned it. He gave me some extra Hail Marys, so I reckoned it probably was quite bad. But that went on for a while, and I think all that confessing to stealing and lying and disrespecting my parents and all the things that I made up finally got me into the gangland scene. And I joined my first gang when I was about 9, I think. I hung with the Legion of Mary. We ran round that town, delivering pure, uncut decades of the Rosary to just about every house in the parish. Everybody was at it. There was no street where it wasn't going on. So we were quite a big operation. We were known locally as the Holy Welly Massive. Great times. So I was quite influenced by all that kind of thing. And for quite a long time, I actually thought I wanted to be a nun. I quite fancied this idea of just going all the way to the top, Mother Superior, and then maybe get myself to the Vatican and actually, top of the league. That was my plan. But then one day I had the radio on and I heard Marvin Gaye singing, "Heard it through the grapevine, not much longer, would you be my baby? Oh, oh, oh." Well, that just turned my head. That was it for me. I left the Legion of Mary and I joined the Tamla of Motown and started going to youth clubs and town halls and various places with my friends, dancing around the handbags. But the problem was, every week you had to have a new dance because they were constantly changing. I mean, nowadays when you see raves, I only see them on TV. I don't go to raves. I know you'll find that surprising, but I don't go to raves. But you see people on TV and dancing just seems to be jumping up and down, like this. But we had some very sophisticated moves that we had to master, otherwise you'd look like an idiot. You couldn't not know the latest dance. So there were all these various things went on, and it was like you'd be dancing away there with your pals in the circle of handbags. And then the next week there'd be something else I had to learn, and it was forever changing. You had to always keep up with it. And it's like, nowadays people use all these dating apps where you swipe one way if you're interested in somebody and you swipe another way if you're not interested. And we had the kind of prehistoric version of that, because you'd be at a disco, youth club, whatever it happened to be, and you'd be dancing in the circle with all your pals round the bags, and then somebody would come up and tap you on the shoulder, and you'd look round, and if you were interested, you'd swipe all the way round. And if you weren't interested, you just swipe the other way. And that was the way it was. And I mean, technology has made all that so much simpler now. But we used to have to walk miles in snow and rain for any chance of drink or drugs or anything else. And now everybody's just, everything's at the flick of a switch. Which is kind of how technology is supposed to be. It is actually supposed to make everything that bit simpler. I mean, we all started with our mobile phones, and this current COVID crisis has really upped the ante on technology. I find it really difficult keeping up with it all because I don't have kids, so I haven't had this constant upgrading of what's available now and what it's replaced with next week. I'm kind of in no man's land between having a Sony Walkman like a house brick, and then suddenly people want me to do Zoom calls. And it's like, ugh. And it's got so much faster because of lockdown, and we're all relying so much more on technology. I've had an Alexa for years, and I still fight with her. This morning I said, "What's the weather?" And she said, "Leather is an animal hide used in the manufacture of shoes and boots." I just look out the window. There was a guy on TV quite recently too, and he was shown as this, I'm not quite sure what you would call it, artificial intelligence, this lady person. Every young boy's fantasy is how I would describe it. But it was being marketed as a companion for those who are lonely and perhaps can't find a companion with a pulse. So the guy's sitting there with his lady companion on the couch, and you can watch the TV with her, and you can whatever, you know. And I'm thinking, aye. Anyway, they don't have a man yet. They haven't come up with a man yet, so, you know, we just have to wait and see. Well, they do have male robots, but we have seen those on TV, and you certainly wouldn't want any of them coming anywhere near. So let's hope those continue to be developed. But, you know, it's a fact of life that we have to just embrace this technology, because even if you make a phone call now to an office or a business, you're being answered by a machine, a computer. For example, I had to call the local authority a few days ago because I had this big bulky refuse thing I needed to get rid of. I mean, some people just overstay their welcome. So I called the number, and this voice said, "Hello, please state the name of the department or person to whom you wish to speak." I said, "Hello, can you put me through to bulky refuse, please?" "Sewage, is that correct?" I said, "No, a bulky refuse." She said, "I'm sorry, I don't know that. Please hold the line while I connect you to customer services." So a few minutes later, well, not a few minutes, you know, this next voice answers. "Hello, Margot here, customer services. How can I help you today?" I said, "Hello, Margot. Can you put me through to bulky refuse?" "Certainly, madam. Putting you through now," she says. So it was just so much easier dealing with humans. But, you know, it's like, it's a hard fact of life that we are being replaced by robots. The day will come, perhaps not in our lifetime, where we will just all sit at home scrolling, looking to see what's going on outside. We won't actually be outside ever. But the government's very interested in how these robots are being developed, because they see it as a possible solution to the crisis in social care. It would be much cheaper if you sent these robots in. But I mean, the sort of dolly bird that they had on TV the other night, I mean, she was quite buxom, low neck, top and short skirt, and you might not want somebody like her feeding your granny breakfast in the morning, but maybe that's the whole point, you know. The frail elderly who survived the austerity cull, and anybody who manages to get through the COVID, can now be on the receiving end of this artificial intelligence social care, where these people are just, once they come up with a guy to match the Barbie doll, a Ken doll to match Barbie doll, they'll just roll them out into care homes across the country in pairs and just shag everybody to death. We were all born after sex, and it looks like we're going to go out the same way. Save the government a great deal of money. But that's just unfortunately the way it goes. Right, so I think that's enough whittering on from me now. So I am going to finish with a piece of music. For those of you who have seen me on my vlogs that I recorded during lockdown from my home in Cebu, you'll know that my musical saw went in for repair just before lockdown, and I lost it. It was you know, I couldn't get access to it. Well, the shops have opened up now, and I got in touch to find out where my saw is, and the business has gone out of business. I've lost my saw. So I was absolutely devastated. I've had it for years. I've played in competitions and everything with it. So anyway, at great personal expense to me, I have replaced it with this magnificent saw, which you may have seen me bringing on earlier. And I've upped the game here now, because this is actually a tree felling saw, a lumberjack saw, if you will. So I thought, well, you know, this could actually improve my job opportunities as well in the future, so I'm just going to go for it and not worry too much about that. So what I'm going to do is play a tune for you. It will be my own shortened and possibly unrecognisable rendition of Summertime by Gershwin. So I shall just get my instrument, and I shall be with you.